Bruce Lee didn't throw his first punch that day. He first measured Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's confidence. That afternoon in 1967, during the Los Angeles UCLA era, when a 7'2" young giant, Kareem, enters a room with his height, people naturally step back. But Bruce Lee, 5'8", doesn't move at all. Bruce simply looks Kareem in the eye, as if reading his mindset, not his body, and quietly says, "Your height is an advantage if your balance doesn't betray you." Kareem thinks it's a normal compliment. Then Bruce performs a simple test. No power, no drama, just timing, and Kareem's body literally recalculates. Years later, Kareem, recalling this friendship, said something that still shocks athletes today, that he never even considered being competitive with Bruce because Bruce was in a different sphere and there was no chance of arrogance within him. Bruce Lee didn't kick first, didn't throw the first punch that day in Los Angeles. He weighed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's confidence first, just as a fighter reads his opponent's habit, not his height. That day at UCLA in 1967, the afternoon heat, the sound of sneakers in the hallway, and the smell of the rubber floor inside the gym, when the 7'2" young giant, Kareem, enters, there's a natural pause in the air, because a man's height isn't just inches, it's presence. Kareem's frame is so tall that the ceiling seems low, and his steps seem so measured. This guy carries his body with discipline. But Bruce Lee? Bruce didn't move at all. A lean, 5'8" frame, his shoulders loose, his eyes calm, and the kind of expression on his face that could never seem real in Hollywood fight scenes, because it wasn't one of excitement, but one of clarity. People were calling Kareem a future star, and they were trying to label Bruce a martial arts instructor. But labels didn't work in this room, because only physics and psychology spoke. Bruce looked Kareem squarely in the eye, as if addressing a person without considering his height, and quietly said, "Your height is an advantage if your balance doesn't betray you." Kareem might have thought it was a normal compliment, but Bruce's tone wasn't a compliment, it was a warning. Kareem gave a polite smile, the kind athletes give to the press, confident and controlled, but Bruce also read into that smile. This guy knows his strengths, and when he knows his strengths, he covers up his weaknesses. Bruce didn't dramatize things, call out the crowd, or create an ego-driven "let me show you" scene. He just gave Kareem a simple instruction: stand here. Kareem stepped in, and there was a small chalk mark on the floor, as if Bruce had planned it in advance. Bruce planted his heels on the ground, his body completely relaxed, and said, "No power." This was the most confusing thing for Kareem, because in the basketball world, power and reach are the religion, but in Bruce's world, power comes first and foremost from control. Bruce said to Kareem, "Raise your arm." Kareem raised his arm, and his long limbs instantly changed the distance. A normal person would have backed off, but Bruce didn't respect the distance, he managed it. Bruce took a half step, then stopped, then looked at Kareem's elbow line, shoulder line, and said in a very soft voice, "If you push, you'll fall." Kareem raised his eyebrows slightly, because this line irritates a giant. A giant feels the world revolves around him, and here a small man is saying, "Your size can betray you." Kareem stiffened his body as if to prove his stability, and Bruce had waited for this moment, because stiffness is the first thing to crack. Bruce brought his palm close to Kareem's chest, not hitting, just hovering, and then a micro tap, light enough for the cameraman to say nothing. But Kareem's center of gravity shifted a fraction, and Kareem felt for the first time that his balance might be tipped against him. Kareem adjusted his footing. Bruce immediately stopped and said, "See, you corrected. That means you felt it." Kareem tightened his jaw, because for athletes, felt it means weakness. But Bruce didn't shame weakness, he made weakness a map. Bruce then lowered his hands, eyes up, and uttered another line that would make this story viral. "I'm not trying to move you, I'm trying to show you where you move yourself." Kareem looked at Bruce for a second as if he wasn't playing a physical game, but a mental one. Bruce then gave Kareem another test: step forward, slow. Kareem took a slow step, and Bruce read the step and set his body at the angle, much like a chess player looks at the board before making a move. As Kareem shifted his weight, Bruce again made a perfectly timed touch on a light spot. No push, no shove, just timing, and Kareem's body micro-bended, as if his body had said, "Hold on." Kareem instantly stabilized, but beneath that stabilization was a hidden truth. The giant realized for the first time that speed isn't just about being fast. Speed also means making decisions first. Bruce didn't embarrass Kareem, but he certainly made him uncomfortable, and discomfort is the key to learning. The 2 or 3 people in the room observing, coach types, gym staff types, realized this wasn't a Hollywood stunt, this was real skill. Kareem finally said, "So what is it, timing?" Bruce tilted his head slightly, as if to say, "You're asking the right question," and said, "Timing is just the surface. The real thing is awareness. You're tall, so you trust reach, but reach makes you lazy." The word lazy came as a shock to Kareem, because Kareem wasn't lazy, he was a disciplined athlete. But Bruce wasn't referring to lazy physical exertion, Bruce was referring to lazy mental effort. Kareem replied, "I'm not lazy." Bruce calmly said, "Prove it. Don't use reach." And this is where the sparring vibe begins that turns this story into legend, because now the test wasn't physical, it was instinctual. Bruce said to Kareem, "Keep your hands in, short, compact." Kareem's body naturally occupied wide space, but being compact becomes a cage for a giant. Kareem tried, and Bruce added in a gentle tone, "Now breathe. If you hold your breath, you'll lose balance." Kareem breathed, and a strange scene unfolded in the room, the world's tallest athlete learning breathing and balance from a short man. And the short man wasn't at all proud, not at all loud, just precise. Kareem suddenly asked, "Why are you so calm?" Bruce replied, "Because calm is faster than panic." Kareem absorbed this line, and that was the moment where the shock of the story landed squarely within Kareem. Bruce Lee didn't prove to the giant that he was strong. Bruce Lee made the giant realize that his size doesn't make him safe. And when a giant's safe feeling is taken away, he either gets angry or honest. Kareem didn't get angry at that moment, but honesty came into his eyes, and after that honesty, he said something that people repeat years later, because there was no ego in it. "I didn't think balance could be this controlling." Bruce replied, "Balance is control, and control is everything." Then Bruce laid out his next move to Kareem, quite quietly. "Now we test your center, and I want you to say the first thing you feel." Kareem nodded, and with that nod, the temperature in the room seemed to tighten a little, because what was about to come wasn't technique, it was truth. Continue? When Bruce Lee told Kareem, "Say the first thing you feel," that line sounds simple, but it's a dangerous line for athletes, because athletes are trained to hide feeling, mask weakness, and prove their bodies are okay. Bruce didn't want proof, Bruce wanted truth. He positioned Kareem squarely in the center, feet shoulder-width apart, knees soft, and then Bruce hovered his hand not on Kareem's chest, near his center, as if he wanted to touch a psychological point more than a physical one. "Don't resist," Bruce said, and for Kareem, this instruction was the most insulting of all, because a giant's entire life is built on resist. Contact, pressure, defenders, bodies. Resistance is the game. Kareem instinctively tightened his core, and Bruce immediately noticed something normal people miss. When you're tight, you're predictable. Bruce didn't push Kareem, Bruce just gave a micro nudge, so soft that if there had been a camera, people would have said nothing happened, but Kareem's ankle rolled a fraction, and that fraction sent Kareem an embarrassing signal: "I reacted." Kareem immediately adjusted, and Bruce said in an almost satisfied tone, "There, that correction, that's your weakness talking." Kareem's jaw tightened, because no one publicly calls a giant a weakness, and even fewer do in private, but Bruce would, because Bruce's mission wasn't to keep you comfortable, it was to keep you accurate. Kareem tried to defend, "I'm stable." Bruce replied simply, "Stable isn't the same as balanced." Then Bruce gave Kareem another rule: breathe out when you feel pressure. Kareem breathed out, and Bruce delivered this nudge from a slightly different angle, not from the front, but from the side, and Kareem's shoulder line rotated slightly.
Kareem realized for the first time that leverage changes with height. The taller you are, the higher your center, and the louder your fall. Bruce didn't show this loudness to Kareem, he made him feel it. "What did you feel?" Bruce asked. Kareem gave the honest line, "I felt late." Bruce said softly, "Exactly. You're always late if you wait for contact. You have to read it before it arrives." This was the moment where Kareem's athlete brain switched on, because Kareem understood that Bruce was learning reaction time engineering, not martial arts. Bruce asked Kareem to take a step forward, then a step back, then to the side, and with each move, Bruce watched his feet, like a coach watching the angle of your shot.
Kareem must have thought this was a basic warm-up, but Bruce was hiding a trap in this basic. When you underestimate the basics, you reveal your habit. Bruce suddenly slid his foot close to Kareem's lead foot. No kick, just placement, and Kareem's mind instantly became alert. Kareem asked, "What was that?" Bruce said, "That was the moment you realized your legs aren't just long, they're targets." Kareem gave a half smile, but this smile wasn't one of charm, it was one of respect, because Kareem realized this guy wasn't bullied by size. Bruce then gave Kareem a simple drill: touch my shoulder, but don't lean. Kareem extended his long arm, and as he reached, Bruce lightly redirected Kareem's wrist, and Kareem's torso tilted forward. Kareem recovered instantly, but Bruce made his point. Your reach pulls you forward. That's why you'll get trapped. Kareem asked, "Trapped how?" Bruce said in a calm, almost scary tone, "By someone smaller who controls the space." Kareem had probably felt a size advantage in matchups throughout his career, but here, that size advantage suddenly became a question mark. Bruce then took Kareem to the mirror and said, "Watch yourself." Kareem looked at his posture in the mirror. Tall, proud, heavy-shouldered, and Bruce uttered a line to break that posture. "Stop trying to look strong. Be functional." Kareem didn't just take this line as training advice, it was a direct hit to the ego, because athletes, and celebrities both, make look a religion. Bruce made look an enemy. Kareem didn't reply this time, he listened. Bruce rewarded that listening and took the drill to the next level. "Now I'm going to step in. You will not move first. You will not panic." Kareem nodded, and Bruce took a very slow step in, then suddenly paused, and in the pause, Kareem's mind almost jumped, because pauses are uncertainty, and uncertainty activates the ego. Kareem stopped himself. Bruce smiled, his first real smile, because Kareem understood Bruce's game for the first time. Control is not speed. Control is choice. Bruce then took a micro step in, brought his palm close to Kareem's chest, stopped without touching, and said, "Right now you want to push me away." Kareem, surprised, said, "How do you know?" Bruce said calmly, "Because tall men don't like short men entering their space." Kareem found that line both funny and truth has an unusual taste, a little bitter, a little addictive. Kareem honestly said, "Yeah, I do." Bruce replied, "Don't." Kareem held his ground, and Bruce suddenly took Kareem offline with very light contact. No push, no pull, just an angle, and Kareem's body readjusted. Kareem didn't react immediately this time. He made an observation. Bruce said, "Now you're learning." Kareem asked, "So what's the point?" Bruce said, "The point is, your height doesn't make you untouchable. It just makes your mistakes bigger." This sentence resonated with Kareem because Kareem's world makes mistakes public. One mistake, and the crowd roars. Headlines, critics, everything. Bruce taught Kareem that the way to hide mistakes is not posture, but awareness. Kareem finally asked the question that becomes the backbone of this story. "So if I can't rely on reach, what do I rely on?" Bruce said without hesitation, "Timing, balance, and calm." Kareem said, "Calm?" Bruce replied, "Calm is the strongest weapon because it doesn't get tired." Kareem paused on this line because athletes get tired, calm doesn't. And then comes the moment where the shocking part of the story is set straight. Kareem reportedly admitted feeling humble for the first time with his height, and he told Bruce, "I didn't expect a smaller man to make me feel unsure." Bruce said very softly, "Good. Unsure means you're awake." Kareem took a deep breath, and then Bruce quietly added, "Now tell me the first thing you feel." Kareem looked down, then back up, and said something that sounded like a confession. "I feel like you're not fighting me, you're teaching me."
Bruce just nodded, and after that nod, Kareem uttered a line, reportedly, that when he later described it to Bruce years later, shocked people, because that line took Bruce's legend out of the movie and made it real. But Bruce didn't celebrate the line. Bruce simply continued training, as if he knew this moment could become a trophy, and trophies bring back ego. The air in the room grew heavier because this wasn't just a drill anymore. It was a collision of two worlds, the world of size and the world of timing. And what Kareem said after the collision, that was still to come. Bruce Lee didn't treat that moment when Kareem admitted "you're in teaching" as a victory, because Bruce knew that even praise can bring back ego. He simply kept his breathing steady, nudged Kareem a step sideways, and said, "Now we make it harder." Kareem asked in an almost surprised tone, "Harder how?" Bruce said casually, "By removing what you rely on."
Kareem understood that this line was going against height, and for tall athletes, this is a psychological attack because their entire lives are built on reach and angles. Bruce instructed Kareem to keep his elbows close, shoulders loose, and not narrow his gaze, as a narrow gaze stiffens a tall body. Kareem tried, but as he compacted his arms, his body automatically compensated, hips slightly locked, chest slightly forward, and Bruce instantly read that compensation. Bruce took a soft step in, then a micro pivot, and Kareem felt as if the space suddenly shrank, as if the room tightens around you despite being 7'2". Bruce didn't touch Kareem, just slid his foot very close to Kareem's lead foot and said, "This is where you fall." Kareem instinctively shifted his feet, and Bruce calmly pointed out, "See, I didn't move you, you moved yourself." For a second, Kareem's face flashed with the expression champions normally hide, shock mixed with respect, because this wasn't an insult, it was a revelation. Then Bruce gave Kareem a drill that looks basic but is brutal inside. "I will enter your space. You will not push, you will not lean, you will only turn." The first time Kareem saw Bruce approaching, his instinct must have screamed, "Create distance," because tall bodies considered distance a safety measure. But Bruce made distance an illusion. Bruce came forward, Kareem turned, and Bruce immediately tagged Kareem mid-turn, again not by power but by timing, as if Bruce were saying, "Your movement is following your schedule, and I'm hacking your schedule." Kareem added a little speed. Bruce didn't punish the speed, Bruce redirected the speed. Kareem's steps were big, Bruce's were small, but Bruce's small step acted like a blade against Kareem's big step, because a blade cuts not with size but with placement. Kareem laughed genuinely for a moment, not a frustrated laugh, a real laugh, because he realized this guy fights with science, not courage. Bruce turned the laugh into a lesson and said, "Good, when you can laugh, your ego is quiet." Kareem nodded, but within that nod was a new thought. If the ego can be quiet, then can I be strong without my dominance? Bruce then uttered a line that adds a controversial flavor to the story. Most big men are strong because nobody ever forces them to be precise. This statement stung Kareem because Kareem was a disciplined athlete, but Bruce respected discipline, worshipped precision. Kareem replied, "So you think I'm not precise?" Bruce simply said, "Not yet." And "not yet" ignited a competitive fire within Kareem, but this time the competition came in the form of focus, not anger. Kareem reset his posture, slowed his breathing, and said, "Okay, teach me." Bruce said, "Then stop trying to win." Kareem paused for a second, because that was the problem. Winners have a hard time losing, then quietly said, "All right." Bruce took the sparring up a notch. He told Kareem that whenever Bruce entered, Kareem should notice just one thing: his weight. "If your weight goes forward, you're done," Bruce said. Kareem felt conscious of his weight for the first time, and from there, training became more about body awareness than martial arts. Then Bruce performed a test that doesn't usually appear in myths because it doesn't flash. Bruce said to Kareem, "Close your eyes, just for a moment." Kareem, surprised, asked, "Why?" Bruce replied, "Because your eyes lie, your body tells the truth." Kareem closed his eyes, and in that second, the temperature of the room changed, because when a 7'2" athlete closes his eyes, he feels vulnerable. Bruce didn't exploit that vulnerability, he sharpened it. Bruce hovered his palm near Kareem's shoulder and said to Kareem, "Tell me where I am."
Kareem hesitated, then guessed, and Bruce calmly corrected. After 2-3 attempts, Kareem's guesses started getting better because he wasn't relying on sight anymore. He was relying on sense. Bruce made him open his eyes and softly said, "Now you're starting to fight like an adult." Kareem raised an eyebrow. "Adult?" Bruce replied, "Kids chase, adults read." Kareem didn't digest that line easily because champions don't like to feel like kids, but Kareem didn't argue. He accepted, and accepting is the heaviest thing for tall pride. The peak of this session came when Kareem, for the first time, found his height a burden instead of a weapon. Bruce told Kareem, "Use your length, but don't let it use you." Kareem tried, and when he extended his long arm, Bruce didn't punish the extension. Bruce targeted the base of that extension. Elbow line, shoulder angle, foot placement. Kareem felt as if his limbs were tied with strings and Bruce was pulling those strings. Kareem finally exhaled and uttered a line that shocks people later because it contained the humility of a giant. "I thought being tall made me untouchable, but you walked inside my safety." Bruce said very quietly, "Because safety is a story you tell yourself." Kareem replied,
"Then what's real?" Bruce replied. "What you can repeat under pressure." Kareem locked that sentence in his mind because athletes understand repetition, practice, discipline, muscle memory. Bruce took that concept from martial arts and applied it to life. What you can repeat under pressure is your real skill. At the end of the session, Kareem didn't seem physically tired. He seemed mentally reset. He looked at Bruce and, for a second, said quite honestly, "This is different. You don't fight like people I know." Bruce gave a calm smile and said, "Because most people fight to prove. I fight to understand." Kareem said something at that moment that, reportedly, when he later describes Bruce, shocks people, because that line elevates Bruce from myth to human genius. "You're not small. You're just earlier than everyone." Bruce laughed, just like a soft exhale, and said, "Good. Now keep that. Don't worship it." Kareem nodded, then headed for the distance, but then stopped and looked back, and that look was like someone opening a new chapter in his career. Kareem learned something that night, but what was even scarier was what he realized. Bruce Lee changed his game, and game change is addictive for a champion and dangerous. As Kareem Abdul-Jabbar walked toward the distance, his body looked perfectly normal. Tall, composed, athletic, but there was a new quiet in his eyes, the quiet that comes when your old certainties collapse and you handle that collapse with curiosity instead of panic. Bruce Lee didn't stop Kareem at that moment, didn't give a farewell speech, didn't make an autograph vibe. That was Bruce's style. When the lesson landed, he wouldn't dilute it with noise. Kareem paused for just a second, looked back, and he looked as if he were saying, "I won't forget this." Bruce simply nodded, as if a teacher were giving his student permission to go ahead and digest this truth. And this is where the "what Kareem said after" part of the story begins. Because Kareem's shock wasn't in the training that night. Kareem's shock was in something that stuck with him after the training. Kareem's world then was a world of numbers and dominance. Height, wingspan, points, records, everything measurable. Bruce's world wasn't measurable. Bruce's world was a world of timing and awareness, where an inch of angle and a second of pause rewrites the game. The first time Kareem left the gym, he didn't feel powerful like a giant. He felt human. And it's weird for athletes to feel human, because their identity is built on superhuman performance. People often assume a champion's confidence is unbreakable, but in reality, a champion's confidence is a routine. The same script every day, the same posture, the same internal speech. Bruce had interrupted Kareem's script. And when a script is interrupted, the person either becomes defensive or honest. Kareem didn't become defensive that night. He became honest. The next day, when Kareem sat with a teammate or friend, the conversation would naturally turn to Bruce, because Bruce's name moved quietly not only in martial arts circles in Los Angeles, but also in Hollywood and sports circles. If someone asked Kareem, "How was it?" Kareem might have given an easy answer. He's fast,
he's skilled, he's intense. But these answers didn't capture the truth. For Kareem, the most shocking part of Bruce wasn't speed, but mind. And mind is hard to describe because you can't prove mind with a camera. Kareem reportedly chose a line that shocks because it makes Bruce not a technique guy, but a force of nature. Bruce isn't against you, Bruce is within you. Kareem felt that Bruce read his instincts, not his moves. And when someone reads your instincts, you feel naked. This naked feeling was unusual for Kareem. His size was an armor on the basketball court, but the very concept of armor failed in Bruce's room. The most shocking realization Kareem shared about Bruce was that Bruce's confidence wasn't loud. Kareem had seen many strong men who announced their strength through posture, voice, jokes, but Bruce didn't announce it. Bruce's confidence was silent, and silent confidence disturbs giants, because giants are used to having the room bend around them. Bruce didn't bend. Bruce treated Kareem like an equal. No fear, no fanboy, no ego, just an equal. For Kareem, this was the purest form of respect, and that's why Kareem's words would later shock people. That height became irrelevant in front of Bruce. Kareem also realized that Bruce could have easily embarrassed him, but Bruce chose to catch him, to keep him safe. That moment when Bruce didn't knock Kareem off balance in a push drill, but instead caught him, became proof to Kareem that Bruce's goal wasn't dominance, but mastery. And the clearest sign of mastery is that you don't choose cruelty, even when you have power. Now here's where the controversial angle of the story comes in. When Kareem later remembered Bruce, he called him a teacher more than a fighter. This line shocks fighters because in fight culture, the label teacher sometimes sounds soft. But for Kareem, teacher didn't mean soft. Teacher meant someone who changes your default setting. Kareem had opened many doors in life with his height, but Bruce showed him that height opens doors, but awareness teaches you to walk inside. Kareem also admitted that after his sessions with Bruce, he began to notice little things in his training: balance, breathing, foot placement, things that taller players normally overlook because their reach forgives them. Bruce took Kareem out of forgiveness and into precision. The shocking part of Kareem's afterwards was that he used less size and more timing when describing Bruce. Normally, when people describe Bruce, they first say he was small but fast. Kareem's angle was different. He was early. For Kareem, Bruce's scariest trait was that he could read you before you moved, like Bruce was one beat ahead of your body. And when someone is one beat ahead of you, your size, your strength, your reach all suddenly seem slow. This feeling shocks Kareem because Kareem is usually ahead in his own world. Bruce made him realize that being ahead is not physical, it is mental. Then comes the legacy part. Kareem and Bruce's partnership later became public. People talk about them, films, training, but the essence of this first meeting always remains behind closed doors, because what was exchanged wasn't content, it was perspective. For Kareem, this meeting didn't just become a cool story, it became an internal reference point. Whenever Kareem started to over-rely on his height, Bruce's line would come to mind: if your balance doesn't betray you. And with that line, another Bruce-esque truth: safety is a story you tell yourself. Kareem realized that when you mistake your size for safety, you become blind, and going blind is the biggest danger for a champion. Bruce made Kareem awake. The final takeaway from this story is simple, but this simplicity holds viral power. Even a giant like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, when confronted by Bruce Lee, understood that strength doesn't mean being loud. Strength means being aware. A person who is aware isn't intimidated by size. A person who is aware has choice, even under pressure. Bruce Lee's gift was precisely that: choice. And Kareem's shocking sentence shocks precisely because it didn't make Bruce a superhero. It made Bruce a clearer human, a man who shows you more about your mind than your body. And when you see your heart, you can never fight like you did before.